Thank you, Amber, for inviting me, and thank you all for being here tonight. I am always excited when I can talk about birds, so let's go. I have a couple of slides to introduce myself a little bit. These are some of the things that I get to do. As Amber said, I am a consulting biologist, and I do a lot of really interesting things. The photo on the center left, the bulldozer, that was actually a project in Orange County that I worked on last year. They were building the Wheeler North Reef off San Clemente Pier, and I was one of the protected species observers. So we had a radio, and whenever a sea lion popped its head up right where they were dropping the rocks, we would tell them, hey, stop it. The one on the center bottom is also in Orange County. That it was the construction and maintenance of the Catalina Sea Ranch, the first mussel farm in federal waters in the U.S. So from there, you can actually see Bolsa Chica, and so some of the other stuff here, top trips to Antarctica, where I get to go on these small cruise ships and take people out on zodiacs and show them penguins and all these neat stuff. In the center, that's actually Diane and her team. I'm part of her team. She is the stranding coordinator for this part of the coast. Well, actually, Santa Barbara County, not Los Angeles County, but Santa Barbara County. And so she goes out there whenever whales strand and finds out why. There's some more stuff. Top right, that's an aerial survey in the Santa Barbara Channel. Bottom right, trips to Baja, which Diane and I co-lead. The two images in the center is, again, protected species observer work. These are seismic surveys, so we're out there often during the night using night vision and infrared to make sure no marine mammals are in the way. On the bottom again, this is South Georgia, an subantarctic island with the king penguins. And on the top left, that's a photo of us in the whale watch program. We have many volunteers from the whale watch program joining us here tonight, and that is really key to what I'm doing. As Amber said, I was a newspaper photographer and later photo editor in real life, and that is kind of a job that kind of disappeared. Newspapers are kind of dwindling away, so I was downsized 3 times over the last 30 years. And finally, when I had to switch careers, it kind of happened through the volunteer work. I have been a volunteer in the Cabrillo Whale Watch program for quite a while, since '94, and that really that work gave me the experience and the connections and the expertise to move into all these other fields. But let's go to Bolsa Chica. So once the pandemic is over, when we can do stuff again, we have to organize a field trip for everybody that's on here tonight. So we have to go out there and look at birds, because talking about birds and looking at pictures is fine, but the real thing is going out there and looking at birds. In Bolsa Chica, there are nonstop really guided bird walks. Every Audubon society within a 100-mile radius will organize somewhat regular trips to Bolsa Chica. So if you do want to learn more about birds, spend more time with birds and spend time with people that really know about birds. A great way to do that is to organize, to join an organized bird walk. Those I don't know how familiar you are with them, but they're super fun and they're super educational. That's a great way to learn more and to get to meet people that know a lot. So I'm going to talk about eBird a little bit. That's we could do a whole lecture really on eBird and not even scratch the surface, but it is really scientists learn what's going on. It's a database. It has, I think, something like 350,000 users worldwide at the moment. It's organized by the Cornell ornithologian. What you do is when you go out birding, you have your app on your phone. You create a track of where you're going, and you input all the species that you're seeing and the numbers that you're seeing, and then you upload it, and anybody can access that data. So here is a screenshot from complicated because it is such a big area. So there are there are series of hotspots. It's not all encompassed in the same one, but you can go there and really find out what has been seen recently, how often certain species are seen. There are many ways to query this and to find out more. Cornell also offers an app called Merlin, which you can have on your phone, and it allows you to identify a bird that you're seeing. So when you're out there, if you see a species that you would like to identify, you can open the app. It will take you through a series of questions. The size of the bird, what kind of habitats and what it's doing, and the main colors. And it is surprisingly accurate. It will definitely put you in the right ballpark. If you have a field guide, you can find the bird. And finally, Cornell also offers this encyclopedia, the online encyclopedia, Birds of the World. This is subscription based. It costs, I think, something like $40 a year to be a member, but it every species of bird in the world, which are over 10,000, is represented in this database, and there's really everything we know about every species of bird. All the information is in here. It's an absolutely amazing resource. There's one more thing. If you want to find out what's going on with birds in Orange County, and I forgot to create a slide for this. There's a listserv called Orange County Birding that you can subscribe to. You can either get daily You can get daily emails or emails as they come in. They're usually 2 or 3 a day, or you can not receive emails. You can just look it up on their website. But people will post interesting sightings that they have, and twice a week they will have an update of the rarities that are being seen in Orange County, and also events, bird walks, lectures, pelagic field trips, that kind of stuff. So Google Orange County birding and sign up for their listserv if you're interested in finding out what's going on with birds in Orange County. So one of the amazing things about Orange County, I mean, I don't need to tell any of you how important Bolsa Chica is as a habitat, as one of the few remaining wetlands in the area. It has a nice size. It has really it has been nicely restored, but it's also a fantastic place to photograph birds. If you're a serious professional bird photographer, you might approach bird photography in a way that you it might take you a month to get a photo of a particular species, where you first find out where it occurs. You might find out when it's there. You build a blind, wait for days and weeks, and until the bird is close enough to your blind, to your camera. But that's not something that you would do at the Bolsa Chica. This is what I do, and what most of these people do is what I would call more casual bird photography. So you walk around and you photograph whatever bird is close enough, whatever bird is exhibiting an interesting behavior. And Bolsa Chica is just the perfect place for that, because the birds there are somewhat habituated to people, so they're not skittish. They don't stay too far away, and you have these excellent opportunities. And throughout the rest of the presentation, I'm going to share some of my photographs from Bolsa Chica with you, and I'm going to tell you stories about some of the more interesting species. So again, here are some bird photographers at work, and some other artists. The boardwalk by the parking lot is the perfect place. The birds just kind of swim under it, fly over it. Right there, you get really close to birds. Unfortunately, bird photographers sometimes succumb to the temptation to get a little bit too close. Unfortunately, too often you see bird photographers getting off the trail, trampling habitat, getting too close to nests, but that's a small minority of photographers. So here's a belted kingfisher. I'm not really making an effort to cover all the species that occur there, or even the more common species. This is just kind of a random assemblage of photos. But again, so if you walk on any of the path, there are birds around you everywhere all the time. They're flying overhead. They're sitting on the water. They're foraging along the shore. They're in the vegetation. They're everywhere. So these are a couple of dunlins. They're a shorebird, and I'm going to use this as a jumping off point to highlight one of another aspect of why coastal wetlands are so important. So they're a place where many of these species nest, many of these species feed, and especially migrating birds. So in worldwide, a very proportionately very large number of birds nest in high latitudes, in the Arctic tundra and in the boreal forest in the northern hemisphere. That's because the seasons are very intense at those high latitudes, and life is just incredibly rich. Everything happens in a short period of time. The breeding season for all species, plants, insects, invertebrates, mammals, birds, is very intense. It's compressed into a short period of time. There's a lot of light. There are a lot of nutrients. There are a lot of resources available. And shorebirds, for example, they have to be able to take full advantage of this short season. They have to arrive at the exact time when the resources become available, at the exact time when the ice and the snow have melted, and when the flowers are starting to bloom, all the invertebrates that they feed on are starting to reproduce. And that timing varies from year to year. I mean, we know how different our seasons can be from year to year. So they stagger their northbound migration into steps, so that they kind of feel out what the climate is like, and they try to arrive on the breeding grounds at the exact time when the conditions are right. But not only do they have to time it right, but they also have to be well fed to start the season. And to be able to do that, they need feeding habitat or wetlands along the entire way, so that they can adapt their migration to the resources. So that's another reason that makes a wetland like Bolsa Chica so important for a large number of species. These are a couple of reddish egrets. They're species that we wouldn't have seen in California 20 years ago. They now they started showing up in Bolsa Chica more regularly about 15 years ago. They're now breeding there. They're definitely making their way north, and it's. I'm a little bit hesitant to ascribe something like that to climate change. Climate change probably plays an important role in something like this, and we're seeing this kind of change in many species. But there can be all kinds of other reasons. Populations can be expanding. So it's not just this binary thing. Okay, we're seeing species from the south that we didn't see before, so that they're here because the world is getting warmer. But it's definitely it is most likely a factor. One of the interesting things to observe is how species that are similar in structure and utilize the same habitat and feed on the same resources, how different how different the techniques are that they employ. Here's a reddish egret kind of spreading its wings, and reddish egrets tend to run after fish. So you'll see them in shallow water, just running, zigzagging, looking really silly, but they will spot a fish and they will run after it, as opposed to some of the other waders that we can look at in a moment. So here's a shorebird, long-billed curlew. These guys like to probe the mud for invertebrates. Here's a great egret. It's It's one of the white egrets we have out here, the little bit bigger one. And these guys will they will feed on the same kind of fish as the reddish egret, but they will mostly stand still and hope for a fish to get close enough for them to catch it, as do great blue herons. This is a kestrel, very small falcon that feeds almost exclusively on lizards. So we see these guys quite a bit. This guy looks like he got a side-blotched lizard there. And this is a snowy egret. They're just so absolutely pretty. You'll see I have way too many snowy egret photos in this presentation, but they feed mostly by walking slowly through the water, kind of kicking the mud with their feet and trying to spook up fish that are trying to hide there. I will talk about them a little bit more. So here's another group of birds that actually nest at Bolsa Chica. The terns. Terns are kind of related to gulls. They're superficially similar, but they're, unlike gulls who are generalists and scavengers and kleptoparasites, the terns will dive for their own fish. They only eat live fish that they catch themselves. So here's a forester's tern diving after a fish. This is a royal tern. The terns, it's kind of a different. Difficult to ascertain the size from these photos because they're all kind of full frame. But the royal tern is a very large tern. This is a young forester's tern, which is much smaller. These guys nest at Bolsa Chica. Here's an adult forester's tern. And this is a least tern. This one is actually fairly small. Least terns are endangered. Like some species, they love white sandy beaches, as do people. So the places where they like to nest are places where we like to sunbathe and play volleyball and let our dogs run. So they compete with us for habitat. But also, them being so small, they need very small forage fish to be available. So quite often, even in places where they are protected, like Bolsa Chica, they will they're not able to raise their chicks in years when the right size fish are not available. And this is an elegant tern. These guys I want to talk a little bit more about. So these guys nest in Bolsa Chica, and so they have a fairly limited range. They used to breed all around Baja, really, all around the Gulf of California, the ocean side, the west coast of Baja, down into Central America, and probably up into California a little bit. But they were heavily impacted by, especially egg collecting, and by introduced predators on their nesting islands. Seabirds have really no defense against predators, because they've for hundreds of thousands of years they have lived on islands without predators. So they're just horrible things that we see around the world, where mice are introduced to an island, and then you see the mice actually eating live birds off the nests, because the birds don't even know to get away from them. But so by the middle of the last century, the 1950s, the elegant terns nested only on Isla Rasa in the central Sea of Cortez. And then they started expanding the range. So in 1959, they started to nest in San Diego Bay in the salt works. And in I can't see this. What is this? I think 98 was Los Angeles. What?
87.
87, yeah. So in 1987, the first nest in Bolsa Chica was observed, and then in 98 they moved into an area that had been set aside for released terns in the port of Los Angeles. So kind of, again, this is an expansion that probably has to do with climate change. The fish in the Sea of Cortez are affected by warmer water. There are fewer resources in that rich area, so that the terns are obviously coming up into the California current. But there are other explanations. The introduced rats were exterminated on Isla Rasa in the late 90s, and so the population exploded. So they did have to find new nesting grounds. But what's really something that I just heard a couple of weeks ago at a conference is that now, over the last couple of years, elegant terns have nested in Spain and France. So all of a sudden they decided to branch out to a completely different area. And that kind of behavior is reassuring, because it shows us that it's a species that will cope well with climate change, that they will survive well. Also, they have an interesting dispersal pattern. So you see the area where they nest. They winter down off northern South America, but after the breeding season, when the chicks hatch, when the chicks fledge, all terns actually move north along the coast, all the way up into Oregon and sometimes Washington, take advantage of the resources of the California current. And then later, when it gets colder in winter in December, they fly south to their wintering grounds. Some more of the species we have there. Here's an osprey, also known as a fish hawk. These guys dive for large fish near the surface. This is an introduced species, a rock pigeon. These guys nest underneath the boardwalk. And this is one of the iconic species at Bolsa Chica, Savannah Sparrow. Tiny little brown jobs. If you're not paying attention, you will not see them. But if you do, you see that they are everywhere. And the particular subspecies that's very common at Bolsa Chica is the Belding Savannah Sparrow. But there are other species. This is a large-billed Savannah Sparrow, so that it's technically the same species, but you can see how different it looks. It is a different species. Lots of waterfowl, lots of ducks use the wetlands. This is an American widgeon. This is a coot, an American coot. So these guys aren't really related to ducks, but they're very similar. in their habits and habitat use. They do eat vegetation on the bottom. This is a duck again, a saltwater duck. It's called a bufflehead. These iridescent colors really only show up in a photograph. If you're looking at the bird with binoculars or with the naked eye, it will look black and white. But when you take a photo in the bright sunlight, you get these crazy colors. This is what the female looks like, much more muted. And here's a diving bufflehead just disappearing under the water. Here's a coot again, eating some of the vegetation that are brought up from the bottom. And here you see the feet. Most birds that dive or swim have webbed feet, which means that their toes are connected by flaps of skin. These guys, actually, the grebes and the coots, they have these flaps of skin that kind of grow out from their toes, but don't really connect the toes like in a duck or a goose or a gull. But they're also very effective in swimming. Here's another very handsome duck. This is a lesser scaup. And I always like to photograph them diving. So here's a scaup approaching the surface. And here it's coming out of the water, but the surface tension of the water hasn't been broken yet, so it's still kind of covered in this thin film of water. This is a grebe. It's a horned grebe. It's one of the small fish-eating birds. And here we have one that just caught a little fish. And here's a snowy egret again. And I really looked hard for photos that I have of these guys exhibiting a really interesting feeding behavior. What they do most of the time when they're feeding, I told you, they'll just walk in the water and they'll kick the bottom with their feet, trying to scare up birds. But some snowy egrets do in some parts of their range. Not all of them do it, and it doesn't happen in all places. I used to see it at Bolsa Chica quite a bit, and I have not seen it so much lately. But it's a behavior where they just dip the tip of their bill into the water and kind of open and close it really fast, and so they create this movement at the surface that mimics a struggling winged insect on the water, and so they attract the fish. Little fish will come up, and they will take them. So it's a very interesting learned behavior. Bolsa Chica was definitely a place where we saw that a lot. So this is another duck species, a northern pintail. And not all the fun critters at Bolsa Chica are birds. This king snake, passerines. This is a house finch. These guys probably breed there. They're year-round residents. Unlike some of, this is a pied-billed grebe. So we're going back to the grebes again. These guys also are there year-round breed. Here's a house finch again. Here's another balding Savannah Sparrow. And they're just, whenever you go there, you see thousands of birds, and you can't even identify all of them to species. A lot of these guys are black-bellied plovers, but they're just so many birds, and so many of them you can't even you can't get close enough. But the fun thing is that with many of them, you can. I'm going to go a little bit faster here because I still have a bunch of pictures. This is a double-crested cormorant. This is a horned lark. These guys nest there. There's a baby horned lark. Long-billed curlew, we already saw this. This is a migrant coming through a tree swallow. This is another shorebird, a marbled godwit. And here's an osprey with a piece of fish. Ospreys tend to carry the fish in their talons when they catch it. They carry it where they can consume it. And I am still waiting for my wonderful picture of it, an osprey with a whole beautiful fish in its talons. So this is the closest I've gotten to it so far. These are American widgeons. So there's a drake in front and the hen in the back, male and female, very common. This is a diving duck that actually feeds on fish, a red-breasted merganser. This is an eared grebe. Here's a tree swallow again, the same one we saw before. Eared grebe, American widgeon, American coot. Here you can see the skin flaps that it has that allow it to swim. Turkey vulture, interesting species. Turkey vultures kind of nest all along the Pacific coast into Washington, British Columbia, and Alaska, and then they move to Central and South America in the winter. But there is a population that actually spends their entire year here in Orange County. They nest here and they winter here. So when we see a turkey vulture, it could either be a migrant coming through, or it could be one of our local birds. Here's another handsome duck, green-winged teal. Here's some widgeons. You can kind of see the shape of the intestinal tract. It's kind of, it has a corkscrew shape, and you can see the poop coming out in a spiral here. This is another northern pintail, another lesser scaup. Willet. So look, this is an interesting shorebird. It looks pretty drab, uniformly gray when it walks, and then when it takes flight, it shows this striking black and white flash on the wings. So I put 4 of our shorebirds together here. So we've already seen Willet bottom left, marbled godwit top left, long-billed curlew top right, and the one on the bottom right is a white-faced ibis. But you see how different their bills are. The Willet has a straight, not so long bill. The marbled godwit has an upturned bill. The ibis has a very thick, down-curved bill, and the long-billed curlew has this really long, thin bill. And what they're doing here, these are birds that are roughly the same size and that take advantage of the exact same habitat. So this is something called resource partitioning, where they actually feed in different areas in the substrate and pick out different creatures so that they don't compete with each other. So they all specialize in slightly different parts of the mud, and taken slightly different species of prey items. This is a song sparrow, and here's a great egret. Here's a great egret with 3 snowy egrets. You can see the size difference. Snowy egret, here's a snowy egret kind of kicking the mud. I said I have too many of this. Was really fun. So the snowy egret was moving along the shore, doing its thing, and the red-breasted merganser, who also eats fish, also the same size fish, kind of came in, and they kind of created this symbiotic relationship where they were both scaring up fish and both kind of taking advantage of each other's presence. So they probably in the end each got fish that the other one scared up. So they worked together there. There's a Savannah sparrow again. This is another species that really Bolsa Chica is kind of known for, a Ridgway's rail. Which is, rails are really kind of hard to say. They hide in the vegetation, but Bolsa Chica is really a place where they're fairly easy to see. This is not typical of a rail. It will spend most of its time in the vegetation. This one was just moving through another part of the habitat, so we got a good look at its body shape. Cooper's hawk is one of the predators here. And this is another interesting behavior that is occurring now. It is something that some gulls will do in some places at some times. And it's happening now in Bolsa Chica, just this one species, the ring-billed gulls. They're picking up clams, and they're carrying them. In this case, they go over the path, the walking path that are covered in gravel, and they drop the clam. They know exactly how high they have to be. The clam will shatter, and they'll go and eat it. And this behavior has been documented in different species in different places of the world, and it's obviously a learned behavior. Some of the birds learn it from other birds, but interestingly, we never see all the birds of the same species do it. So some of the ring-billed gulls here picked up on it and are doing it, but not all of them. And in this case, no other species are doing it, although there are several other species of gull that are in the same area that are undoubtedly seeing this. They don't catch on, and I've seen it about 15 years ago. It was very common in Marina del Rey to see western gulls do this, and ring-billed gulls at the time never caught on. So we had some western gulls dropping the clams on the bike path, but they were the only species doing it. So it's a really interesting behavior, and I really kind of want to keep an eye on it, see how long it lasts, if that's something that continues on, or if the behavior dies out, and if there are any changes, if other species catch on. Here's an American widgeon, another American widgeon. Here we have a ruddy duck. To me, this is kind of like a photo bomb, like photographing the other ducks, and that guy is like, hey, look at me. Often there are rare species. This is a redneck grebe. That's a species that's fairly rare in Southern California. This was at Bolsa Chica a couple months ago. I'm not sure if it's still there. And here's another turkey vulture. And I think that's it for the photos that I have. So here are my, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. a great way to stay in touch with me, to see what I'm doing, see some of my photos if you like. Do friend me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram or Twitter. And here's my contact information if anybody wants to talk more about any of the things that we talked about tonight. And I think that's it. So looks like I just got it in over the 45 minutes.
Thank you, Bernardo.
This was fun.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your wonderful photos. Those are beautiful. We're going to open it up. If anyone has questions, comments, wants to go back and see a photo, if that's possible, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. I think I have a question. When did you first start deciding you wanted to get into wildlife photography, I suppose?
Oh, I was always crazy about birds. My mom tells me that as soon as I could walk, every time they took me out to the park, I was always fascinated with birds. My godmother gave me a little Instamatic camera when I was on my 10th birthday, and my first photo was of a bird, and it was just something that has been part of me always. Like I don't know any other life. It's what I like.
That's awesome. All right, and then I think I have another follow-up. When did you start taking an interest in Bolsa Chica?
I honestly don't remember. I mean, I remember I used to go there before, like, they closed it for construction when they did all the habitat restoration. But I used to go there before when they were just dirt paths. I mean, I've always I've moved to Southern California from Brazil in 1981, and I always like to explore places where you could hike and photograph and see birds. And I mean, Bolsa Chica was just a natural. So I don't even remember the first time that I went there, but I have been going there. Like, I go several times a year, and I wish I could do it more.
Can you tell us a little bit about your equipment, your cameras and lenses?
I shoot Nikon kind of by default. It's I mean, not because I'm partial to it. It's just what I've always used, and I always kind of have their second top of the line camera. Right now I'm using the D810, which it just means I can't afford their top of the line camera. So, but they usually have a step down model that's really good. And I use a fixed 300 millimeter lens. That's kind of my go-to lens that I have with me all the time. And I like it because it's a fixed lens is usually sharper. than a zoom lens, and it focuses faster. So I get really clear pictures, and all my pictures are cropped. Some of them quite severely. So with wildlife photography, you can't really with a moving a bird that's flying by, you really have to center the bird in the picture. You can't really compose. So I do all that in post processing. I do kind of adjust the contrast, and I crop the pictures the way I like them on the computer.
I have a quick question. I missed earlier when you were mentioning an interesting behavior you were seeing in a bird. Could you just repeat that for me?
Was that the snowy egret?
I'm not sure. There was a photo of a bird eating maybe like a beetle.
Oh, it was the seagulls.
Okay.
So they drop these clams. They burrow the clams out of the mud, and then they carry them over. It's always over the path, the footpath that's covered in gravel, and they drop it from a certain height. It's always the same height. They know how high they have to be, and so the shell shatters, and they eat the insides. I mean, it's almost like you can't call it tool use, but it is definitely a step beyond what birds do when they just either find food or manipulate it with their beak. In this case, they're taking it somewhere else, and they're taking this action of dropping it in the right place. So that is very it's a very interesting behavior. It shows some intelligence, some abstract thinking, and some learning, because some birds will pick it up and others won't.
Thank you.
I have kind of a two-part question. First, I wanted to know if you had a favorite species that you've photographed and get really excited every time you see them. And then I also wanted to know if there's a species that you have not photographed yet and are kind of on the lookout for.
Oh, those are great questions. It's kind of like which of your children do you like best? Like I'm really excited about all birds. I mean, if I had to pick one, I would say brown pelicans. Maybe I have a soft spot in my heart for them. They're just so majestic and so goofy at the same time. They're really they're if I have to pick a favorite, I would say brown pelican. And I mean, of course, there are species that are rare, that are difficult to come by. So you always look for that. But I kind of look more in terms of what I want to put. I look more for interesting behaviors or interesting situations, like different species interacting with each other, or feeding, or an interesting mold pattern in a bird. So it's not necessarily that that I'm looking for new species, but for new situations.
Great, thank you.
Right.
All right, do we have any further questions?
How many species have you captured excreting in that way, and that, not necessarily in that way, but how many bird pooping pictures do you have?
I have quite a few. And I mean, that is something that's actually is part of the answer to the previous question. I really have fun with getting birds in the act of defecating. It can look really interesting, especially seabirds. They have like very large loads that create like big splashes and stuff. And I have not really counted, but I would say I probably have at least 30 different species.
I'd say more than that. What's the rarest bird you have defecating?
Oh, probably a white-chinned petrel in the Drake Passage. But yeah, no. Someday I'll make a presentation of just that, because that is something that you can't plan to photograph. It happens without warning, so you have to be photographing the bird when it happens. It's just sheer luck, but it does happen often enough to make it fun.
I have a question. Are you aware of any species in particular that either visit Bolsa Chica, migration, or they're there year round, either way, that are in danger of extinction? That any particular species that we need to be worried about?
Well, in the broader sense, we need to be worried about quite a few of them, because climate change is really affecting a large number of species. And as a scientist, I don't like to say, okay, the species is directly affected by climate change, because we haven't really done the research. But you can tell that there are quite a few species are going to run out of habitat. We don't see it in Southern California as much, but up in the Arctic, for example, there's one species, the black guillemot, that nests on islands off Barrow, and it has just in the last few years, it has gotten too warm for them on those islands, and there are no more islands further north. So there's a population that has literally run out of space. So that's a very broad answer to your question, but I think that is really something that is important to be aware of, and let it guide our consumption and our actions and our voting, because we do need to take care of that. There are few. I'm not sure if California gnatcatcher uses. I know they're on the Palos Verdes Peninsula. I don't know if they're there. Ridgway's rail is probably endangered. They've lost a lot of their habitat. I can't think of any flagship species right off the top of my head.
Isn't the reddish egret in danger?
No, they're just rare here.
I believe in Bolsa Chica, that's the Ridgeway's rail and then the building Savannah Sparrow, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
The which Savannah Sparrow? I'm sorry.
The building's Savannah Sparrow, the subspecies that was the one that had like the yellow.
I used to.
And then, yeah, California least tern as well.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, the California least tern is endangered. Yeah, and it does use Bolsa Chica. Yeah. Sorry.
I used to see the white pelican at Bolsa Chica, and the last couple of times there were no white pelicans.
They come there in the winter, so we're. I mean, the seasons for the birds are don't necessarily jive with our calendar year. So the winter is the non-breeding season for the white pelicans. So which could be as early as July, and they could be there as late as May or June, depending on when they breed in a particular year or when a particular population breeds. But they're wintering birds, and they tend to range quite far to forage. So even if they're there, they might head down to Upper Newport Bay for the day and feed there. So you go and you don't see them, even though they're in the area. They should still be there, and but they're not really tied to a particular place. There are certain species that you will see in the same spot over and over, and the white pelicans they just range far and wide.
I have a question. What's your favorite time to go to Bolsa Chica? Early mornings, middle of the day, or sunset? And why?
Birds tend to be most active right at sunrise, and right at sunset. More so at sunrise than at sunset. It is more important, like for forest birds. Like if you want to go somewhere where little birds are perched in the trees, morning is by far the best. And Bolsa Chica is kind of the water habitat and the shore habitat. Those birds really don't have a place to go. Where a bird that's up in a tree will just sit still somewhere, and you won't see it if it's not moving around calling. But so you can really see birds at Bolsa Chica at any time of day. But early morning is definitely best, and late afternoon is second best. And I kind of like the light for photography. So once the sun rises a little bit, so not really dusk when it's still dark, but that low sunlight is, and the warm glow is really nice.
I agree. Thank you.
All right, I think we have time for one last question. Anyone? Going once? Going twice? All righty. I think we'll call it there.